The Watchers. The stars held no warmth for Admiral Vextai as he stood on the bridge of the Shadowhawk, flagship of the Kethvar Empire's 7th Reconnaissance Fleet. His silver-scaled skin reflected the cold light of distant suns, and his arms moved with practiced precision across the command console. The Kethvar had ruled the galaxy's outer rim for 3 centuries, and Vextai had personally overseen the conquest of 17 worlds. Today, he expected to add an 18th. Status report, Navigator Zixel, Vextai commanded, his voice carrying the authority that had broken the will of countless species. The younger Kethvar, her scales still bearing the bright blue of youth, consulted her instruments. We have entered the outer edge of the system designated Terra 3, Admiral. Long-range scans confirm the presence of an inhabited world in the habitable zone. Initial readings suggest a Type 2 civilization. Vextai's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. Type 2 civilizations were perfect targets, advanced enough to be worth conquering but primitive enough to offer little resistance. Show me their world. The main display shimmered to life, revealing a blue-green planet that hung like a jewel against the cosmic void. White clouds swirled across its surface, and the dark side sparkled with the lights of cities. It was beautiful, Vextai admitted to himself, though beauty meant little when measured against the Empire's expansion needs. Preliminary scans indicate a population of approximately 8 billion beings, reported Science Officer Kralvin, his red-tinged scales marking him as one of the warrior caste. They appear to be a bipedal species calling themselves humans. Their technology level suggests early spaceflight capability, but nothing approaching our standards. The Admiral moved to examine the tactical display more closely. Several space stations orbited the planet, and primitive vessels moved between the planet and its single moon. Everything appeared exactly as expected for a species just beginning to reach beyond their homeworld. What of their military capabilities? Vextai asked. Minimal, Admiral, Kralvin replied with barely concealed disdain. We detect no energy shields, no particle beam weapons, no quantum torpedoes. Their vessels appear to be powered by simple fusion reactors, and their weapons seem limited to kinetic projectiles and basic laser arrays. Pathetic, muttered Tactical Officer Nixara from her station. We could conquer this world with a single battle group. Vextai nodded slowly. The Kethvar had faced such opponents before. Species that had barely learned to leave their homeworld always fell quickly to superior technology and experience. This would be another easy victory for the Empire. Begin detailed scans of their orbital installations, he ordered. I want to know the exact locations of their defensive positions and command centers. We will strike swiftly and with overwhelming force. As the Shadowhawk and her escort vessels moved deeper into the system, their advanced sensors probed every human structure. The space stations were lightly armed and poorly shielded. The few warships they detected were antiquated designs that would pose no threat to even the oldest vessels in the Kethvar fleet. Admiral, called Communications Officer Therix, we are receiving a transmission from the humans. They appear to have detected our approach. On screen, Vextai commanded. The display changed to show the interior of what was clearly a human command center. A female human in a dark uniform sat at a central chair, her brown hair pulled back and her green eyes showing calm alertness. Behind her, other humans worked at primitive control stations. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Command, the human said. We welcome you to our solar system and hope that your intentions are peaceful. If you require assistance or supplies, we are prepared to offer what aid we can. Vextai studied the human leader with interest. Despite the primitive nature of her surroundings, she carried herself with the bearing of an experienced commander. Still, her offer of aid was amusing. What could such a backward species possibly offer the mighty Kethvar Empire? I am Admiral Vextai of the Kethvar 7th Fleet, he replied, activating the translation protocols. We come seeking to evaluate your world's potential for integration into our empire. Prepare your leaders for surrender negotiations. The human admiral's expression didn't change, though Vextai thought he detected a slight tightening around her eyes. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Admiral. Earth is not interested in joining any empire. However, we remain open to peaceful trade and cultural exchange. You misunderstand, Vextai said, allowing his voice to carry the threat that had cowed so many others. This is not a request. Your compliance is not optional. Admiral Chen leaned forward slightly. Admiral Vextai, I believe you may be operating under some misconceptions about humanity and our capabilities. Perhaps we should arrange a more formal meeting to discuss the situation. The only meeting we require is your unconditional surrender, Vextai replied. You have 6 of your planetary rotations to consider our generous offer. After that, we will take your world by force. The transmission ended, and Vextai turned back to his officers. Continue the scans. I want detailed intelligence on their defensive capabilities before we begin the invasion. Over the following days, the Kethvar fleet maintained its position at the edge of the system, their sensors cataloging every human vessel and installation. The results only confirmed their initial assessment. The humans possessed perhaps 200 ships that could generously be called warships, most of them laughably small and underarmed. Their orbital defenses consisted of basic missile platforms and energy weapons that couldn't penetrate even light Kethvar shielding. Admiral, Kralvin reported on the 4th day, we have completed our assessment. The human fleet poses no significant threat to our forces. Our shields can deflect their most powerful weapons, and our own firepower can destroy their largest vessels with single shots. What of their ground defenses? Vextai asked. Equally primitive. No planetary shields, no orbital bombardment platforms, no quantum mines. Once we control their orbital space, the planet will be defenseless. Vextai felt the familiar satisfaction that came before an easy conquest. The humans had shown no sign of preparing for battle despite his ultimatum. Their fleet maintained its normal patrol patterns, and their civilians continued their daily routines as if unaware of the doom hanging over their world. Prepare the fleet for battle, he commanded. We begin the attack at dawn on the 6th day. But as the Kethvar ships moved into attack formation, none of them noticed the subtle energy signatures that had been watching them since their arrival. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in facilities that didn't appear on any scan, human observers tracked every movement of the alien fleet. The charade had been maintained perfectly, but now it was time for the truth to be revealed. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood in the primary command center of Luna Base Alpha, watching the tactical display that showed the Kethvar fleet preparing for what they believed would be an easy victory. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored systems that the aliens couldn't even detect, their screens showing readouts that would have terrified the Kethvar if they had understood what they were seeing. Phase 1 complete, reported Colonel James Park, the facility's intelligence chief. The aliens have accepted our deception completely. They believe we're a primitive civilization with no real defenses. Phase 2 status? Rodriguez asked. All stealth fleets are in position and ready, replied Commander Lisa Zhang from the Fleet Coordination Station. The Invisible Sword Battle Group is maintaining position behind Jupiter's radiation belt. The Silent Storm Task Force is hidden in the asteroid field. The Ghostwalker Squadron is using active camouflage in high Earth orbit. Rodriguez nodded with satisfaction. Humanity had spent 2 decades preparing for this moment, ever since their deep space monitoring stations had first detected signs of an aggressive galactic empire expanding toward Earth. The decision had been made at the highest levels to present humanity as a weak, primitive species while secretly developing the most advanced military technology possible. The deception had been perfect. Obsolete fusion-powered ships patrolled openly while true warships equipped with quantum drives and metamaterial armor remained invisible. Primitive weapons were displayed while gravitic disruptors and plasma cannons stayed hidden. Basic space. Stations operated normally while massive defense platforms remained cloaked and undetectable. What's the status of the quantum jammers? Rodriguez asked. Online and ready, reported Chief Technical Officer Marcus Webb. Once activated, the aliens won't be able to use their faster-than-light communications or drives. They'll be trapped in our system. And the adaptive camouflage network? Fully operational. We can make our ships appear as asteroids, debris, or empty space. The alien sensors won't be able to distinguish between real and false targets. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. The Kethvar had conquered 17 worlds through technological superiority and ruthless tactics. They were about to learn that sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted. On the 6th day, as Admiral Vextai prepared to demonstrate the futility of human resistance, he had no idea that he was walking into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapons platform, and every ship in his fleet was already targeted by weapons he couldn't see or imagine. The greatest deception in human history was about to be revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same. The awakening dawn came to Earth as it had for billions of years. But this sunrise would mark a turning point in galactic history. Admiral Vextai stood on the bridge of the Shadowhawk as his fleet moved into attack formation, confident in the superiority that had brought the Kethvar Empire victory after victory across the stars. "All vessels report ready for combat operations," announced Tactical Officer Nixara. "The human fleet is maintaining standard patrol positions. They show no signs of organizing a defense." Vextai clicked his mandibles in satisfaction. "Begin the demonstration. Target their largest orbital station with a precision strike. Let them see the futility of resistance." The Shadowhawk's primary weapons came online, particle beams that could slice through planetary crust charging to full power. The targeting system locked onto a human space station orbiting high above Earth's night side, its lights twinkling innocently in the darkness. "Firing," reported Nixara. The particle beam lanced across space, a brilliant spear of energy that should have vaporized the human station instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The beam struck what appeared to be empty space and dispersed harmlessly against an invisible barrier. "What?" Vextai spun toward his tactical officer. "What happened to our shot?" I don't understand, Admiral. Our targeting was perfect, but the beam was deflected by some kind of shielding. But our sensors show no shield generators or energy patterns consistent with defensive barriers." Before Vextai could respond, the space around the human station shimmered like heat waves rising from desert sand. Slowly, an enormous structure materialized from apparent nothingness. The station they had targeted was revealed to be merely a small docking facility, attached to a massive defensive platform, bristling with weapons that the Kethvar sensors had never detected. "Impossible," whispered Science Officer Kralvin. "Our sensors show no energy signatures consistent with cloaking technology. How could we have missed something that large?" "Admiral," Communications Officer Therix called out urgently, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." The main display activated, showing Admiral Sarah Chen once again seated in her command chair. But now her surroundings looked different. Banks of advanced equipment hummed with energy, and holographic displays showed tactical information that made Kralvin's scales pale with recognition. "Admiral Vextai," Chen said calmly, "I believe I mentioned that you were operating under some misconceptions about humanity. Allow me to provide some clarification." As she spoke, space around the Kethvar fleet began to change. What had appeared to be empty void now revealed itself to be filled with human warships. Dozens of vessels materialized from perfect concealment, their sleek hulls reflecting no light as advanced metamaterials bent electromagnetic radiation around them. The ships were larger than anything in the Kethvar fleet, their weapon ports glowing with energies that the aliens' instruments couldn't identify. "This is impossible," Vextai snarled. "No species we've encountered possesses stealth technology that advanced." "You're quite right," Admiral Chen replied, somehow hearing his words. "No species you've encountered before possessed it. But then, you've never encountered humanity before, have you?" Captain Elena Rodriguez watched from Luna Base Alpha as the Kethvar fleet struggled to comprehend what was happening to them. The alien sensors were going wild, trying to make sense of weapons and defensive systems that operated on principles they didn't understand. "Quantum jammers active," reported Commander Zhang. "The aliens can't call for reinforcements or retreat. Using their FTL drives, gravitational field generators online," added Colonel Park. "We can manipulate their ship movements if necessary." "Temporal displacement fields ready," said Chief Webb. "If they try to use time dilution tactics, we can counter them." Rodriguez nodded. Humanity had spent 20 years not just building weapons, but studying every piece of alien technology they could find. When the first Kethvar probe had entered, their sensor range 5 years ago, human scientists had been ready. They had analyzed the aliens' capabilities, identified their weaknesses, and developed countermeasures for every threat the Empire could pose. Back aboard the Shadowhawk, Vextai was discovering that his technological superiority had become a deadly disadvantage. His sensors, designed to detect conventional energy signatures and materials, were useless against human adaptive camouflage. His weapons, optimized for fighting species with similar technology levels, couldn't penetrate defenses that operated on quantum mechanical principles. "Admiral," Nixara reported with growing panic, "our weapons are having no effect. The human ships are surrounded by what appears to be distorted space-time. Our particle beams are being bent around them." "What about kinetic projectiles?" Vextai demanded. "No effect. The projectiles are slowing down as they approach, as if they're moving through increasingly thick fluid, some kind of inertial dampening field." "Admiral," called Navigator Zixel, "we have a problem. Our FTL drives are not responding. Something is interfering with our quantum field generators." Vextai felt the first cold touch of fear. In 3 centuries of conquest, the Kethvar had never encountered a species that could neutralize their faster-than-light capabilities. Without FTL, they were trapped. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge again. "Admiral Vextai, you seem distressed. Perhaps now would be a good time for that formal meeting I suggested. What do you want?" Vextai growled, his warrior's pride warring with the growing realization that he was outmatched. "What I've wanted from the beginning. A peaceful resolution. You see, Admiral, humanity learned of the Kethvar Empire's expansion pattern several decades ago. We've been preparing for this encounter ever since." As she spoke, more human ships decloaked throughout the solar system. They emerged from behind moons, rose from planetary rings, and materialized from asteroid fields. The Kethvar fleet, which had seemed overwhelmingly powerful just moments before, was now surrounded by a force that outnumbered them 10-1. "We know about the 17 worlds you've conquered," Chen continued. "We know about your tactics, your technology, and your weaknesses. What you saw as a primitive civilization was actually an elaborate deception designed to make you reveal your capabilities while hiding our own." "Impossible," Vextai whispered. "No species could have hidden technology this advanced from our sensors." "Admiral," Science Officer Kralvin said quietly, "I'm analyzing the energy signatures from their ships. The power readings they're off any scale we use, and their weapons, I've never seen anything like them. They appeared to manipulate fundamental forces directly." Chen's image leaned forward. "Humanity had an advantage you didn't account for, Admiral. We're a young species, yes, but we're also unified. When we learned of the threat your empire posed, every nation, every corporation, every brilliant mind on our planet worked together toward a single goal: protecting our world and our freedom." Rodriguez smiled as she watched the alien commander's growing realization. The Kethvar Empire's greatest weakness was its arrogance. They had conquered worlds through technological superiority, never adapting their tactics or innovating beyond their early advantages. Humanity, faced with an existential threat, had pushed the boundaries of physics itself. "We developed quantum stealth technology that makes our ships undetectable to conventional sensors," Chen explained. "We created weapons that manipulate gravity, time, and space itself. We built defenses that can turn your own attacks back on you, and we did it all while maintaining the illusion that we were a primitive species not worth your full attention." Admiral Vextai looked around his bridge at officers whose scales had turned pale with fear. His mighty fleet was helpless, surrounded by enemies they couldn't fight and couldn't escape from. For the first time in his long career, he faced the possibility of total defeat. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now, Admiral, you and your fleet will leave our solar system and return to your empire with a message. Tell your leaders that humanity is not available for conquest. Tell them that we know about their expansion, their methods, and their plans. And tell them that if they threaten any other innocent species, they will face the same fate you would have faced today." "And what fate is that?" Vextai asked, though he was beginning to understand. Admiral Chen's smile was cold as the space between stars. Complete annihilation, Admiral. We could have destroyed your entire fleet before you even knew we were here. We chose not to because we believe in giving others the same choice we want for ourselves. Live in peace or face the consequences. As if to demonstrate her point, one of the human ships fired a single shot at a nearby asteroid. The projectile struck the rock and it simply ceased to exist. Not exploded or vaporized, but erased from reality as if it had never been there. Quantum disintegration, Chen explained. We can unmake matter at the subatomic level. Your ships, your worlds, your entire empire could be wiped from existence without a trace. The bridge of the Shadowhawk fell silent, except for the hum of instruments that were struggling to comprehend the technology surrounding them. Vextai looked at the tactical display showing his fleet surrounded by forces beyond his understanding, and made the only decision a wise commander could make. We will carry your message to the Empire, he said. Excellent, Chen replied. Your FTL capabilities will be restored once you reach the edge of our system. Admiral Vextai, you and your people are not our enemies unless you choose to be. The galaxy is large enough for many species to thrive. Choose wisdom. The transmission ended, and slowly, the quantum jammers were deactivated. The Kethvar fleet, humbled and amazed, began its journey back to Empire space. They carried with them the knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy lived a species that had turned deception into an art form and had weaponized the very foundations of reality itself. Behind them, Earth's true fleet faded back into invisibility, returning to its silent watch over humanity's first steps into a galaxy that would never again underestimate the species from the small blue world.